Mao believed that China needed strong international support, and within weeks of taking power in 1949, he visited Moscow. But Joseph Stalin was a difficult ally. For 3 days, he did not even acknowledge Mao's presence in Moscow. Finally, he gave the Chinese limited aid and agreed to a defense treaty. On his return to Beijing, Mao addressed his colleagues. Chief among the imperialists was America. The United States did not recognize Mao's government. Only months after this speech, the two sides would be at war in Korea. In June 1950, North Korea invaded South Korea. America was outraged and called for immediate action. The United Nations sent troops from 15 countries to defend South Korea. They were led by the American General Douglas MacArthur. After months of hard fighting, the UN forces pushed the North Korean army out of the south. In October, they reached the North Korean capital, Pyongyang.
The original orders that we gave MacArthur were, when he is able to do so, to expel the North from the South. And in doing so, to keep well clear of the Chinese borders, because we did not want to give them any pretext to come in.
But MacArthur's troops continued north, towards the Yalu River and the border with China.
MacArthur had much broader objectives: to take advantage of the attack, to attack China, and remove Chinese communists as a threat in the area. And he is continually trying to do things that would bring China into the war.
Mao's government was barely a year old and in the midst of radical reforms. It could hardly afford a war, but Mao felt the UN forces were an intolerable threat to China's security. Under the command of General Peng Dehuai, 250,000 Chinese troops secretly crossed into Korea. At the end of October 1950, they attacked, taking the UN forces completely by surprise. The UN troops soon fled in a massive retreat. In China, the government launched a propaganda campaign called Resist America and Aid Korea.
People donated money for planes and ammunition for the war effort. Every family gave.
We heard people saying how our soldiers were bravely fighting in the icy fields and how they were beating the Americans, carrying them away in their sleeping bags one by one. We were so moved that we all donated. One day I got my 2 weeks' salary. I gave it all.
By the spring of 1951, the war was a grim stalemate. Both sides were dug in around the 38th parallel, separating North and South Korea. While fighting continued, peace talks began. Finally, after 2 years, the talks produced an armistice.
The Korean War forced us to recognize and the American people to recognize that the new regime, the communist regime in China, was a fact of life with whom we were going to have to live.
In China, the war created great national pride. The Chinese army had suffered terribly, with nearly 1 million casualties. But it had fought to a standstill the armies of the strongest nations in the world.